Hello, climbers, and welcome to our first ever episode of Climbing Mount CMMC. I'm your co-host, Kaylee Floyd, and today I am joined by our host, Bobby Guerra. We are going to be talking about the mission and vision behind this podcast and what it means to us. We're so excited to share this with all of you, and we hope you enjoy today's episode. All right, Bobby, so let's talk about really what you want this podcast to be about and what your mission and vision is behind it.
Well, this is kind of cool that it's the first episode, right?
I know. Yeah.
And so it's been a long time coming. We've been talking about it for a long time, and now it is here. But I think that's a great question. What exactly are we going to be targeting and talking about? And I think there are unique challenges in anybody who's involved in CMMC. The first focus is going to be as an CEO and owner of an MSP. The first focus is going to be, what does that look like for an MSP who's going to be trying to tackle this big beast, ride this bull or grab a tiger by the tail, whatever analogy fits best for you. We're going to be focusing on that. Secondly, we're also going to be focusing on, if you're someone who's going to be engaging with an MSP, what does that look like? What are things that you need to be thinking about? Because obviously the idea of how an MSP is trying to do this right has an impact for someone who might be engaging someone who's doing it wrong. So we're gonna be trying to help those people who are going to be going through that process of picking an MSP. What do they need to know? What are the things they're going to be looking at? Right. And then thirdly, individuals who want to know more about the ecosystem. A majority of the people that are involved in the CMMC ecosystem are SMBs. So MSPs and MSSPs are going to be involved all through this. And so this is going to play a very major part in that process. I think this podcast is going to provide a lot of value for those people that fall in those categories, as well as others just trying to stay more in the know about how that ecosystem is playing out.
And so as far as, what we're going to talk about on an episode to episode basis, like give them a little bit, of, I guess, a sneak peek, even if you want to say, of some topics that we're going to be covering.
Sure. Yeah, I think when you're looking at this or looking down the barrel of the gun of CMMC, you might say, as an MSP, some challenges you're going to be trying to think about is how are you going to do this architecture? How are you going to support your clients? How can you pass your level 2 assessment, which all indications are going to have been showing that an MSP, if they're providing technical support to a client that is level 2, they're going to have to get level 2 certified too themselves. And that makes sense.
Right.
And I think trying to understand what that looks like, those are some topics we're going to cover. What is the cost that's going to be involved? How much resources are you going to need? What type of interactions? What does a shared matrix look like between a client and someone else? What about engaging with a C3PO who's going to be doing the assessment? What are some things that you should be thinking about when you're trying to engage with those? What kinds of rights do you have when you're trying to pick who's going to do your assessment? What is an assessor going to be looking for when they come in from an MSP as well as the OSC? Those kinds of acronym soups that you have, right? Those are types of things that you're going to want to see. And then there's all kinds of other things that flow around this that really have an impact. Like we have some guests. Do you want me to cover some of the guests that we've actually recorded?
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Some of you may know Joy Beland, who's a legend in the industry. She works with Summit 7. She's going to be talking about the MSP initiative that they started, which I think is a good thing, and we're actively looking to participate in. The legendary Amira Armond, and she talks about Curie systems and templates and things that you need to think about. Brian Hubbard, who's also participated in, I think, at least 3 joint assessments. He's going to be talking about what assessors are going to be looking for from us as MSPs, and what are some things that you really need to pay attention about. And if you have hired an MSP, you definitely want to sit in on that, because the assessors are going to be coming looking for us and whether or not we're doing things right. So there's just going to be so many cool things. We've got other guests lined up. And it's not always going to be necessarily about CMMC purely, because I think CIS is a beautiful framework. that if you're thinking about trying to get into that space, having that applied in your environment and then rifting and kind of pivoting off of that when you're ready to go for CMMC can be a very powerful thing, because CIS has a great overarching framework. It covers a lot of things, and some of those things that aren't so laser focused on CUI, right? Because NIST 800-171 is more focused on that data. It doesn't necessarily focus so much on how safe the organization as a whole from a resiliency perspective. It doesn't have backups included in that standard. And there's some other key things that are left out of that NIST standard. And that's one of the reasons why they had the Delta 20 that eventually got removed. So those are just some things that we'll be talking about that I think are going to be just really challenging conversations. I wish I could say after each episode that they have been all completely answered, but that's the reason why we've called this the CMMC, climbing Mount CMMC, because it's going to be a challenge.
It's
and
a
there's
mountain.
lots of different, it's a mountain. There's lots of different ways to cover that in vertical ascent and attack. And this will be no different.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I would love for you to talk just a little bit about, when you first heard about this mountain called CMMC, and, you're just, starting journey, because there are going to be people listening to this that are hearing these acronyms and might be overwhelmed, and don't know where to start. And, and we're here for those people. And so I want to hear, your story about when you first heard about this, and maybe some things that helped you get started as well.
Yeah, that's a good one. I hope you have a few hours.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna be keeping these much shorter, but I'm gonna I'll keep it brief. But we've got a passion as an MSP ourselves, providing service to our clients. We love it.
Yeah,
we love how we do it. I've been doing this for over 20 years. But when I saw coming down the pipe CMMC and how critical MSPs were going to need to play a role in it, and then based on my years of experience as an MSP, how bad MSPs tend to be at providing good checks and balances internally, and how they provide IT services for their clients. And I'm pointing the finger at myself and everyone else in our industry in that way, is we just haven't done necessarily a good job of following frameworks and holding ourselves to those standards, right? And how we do that. And when I saw that, I was like, if I go after CMMC, my company's going to be better. I'm going to be better as a company. And I think that's a great philosophy that others in this industry should have, as well as what is that going to do to the ecosystem for MSPs? What is that going to do in the CMMC ecosystem? And I just thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to get better as a company, to get involved in something I think is great, because CMMC is really about trying to secure the borders of our government and helping make sure that we keep everything safe, that we're protecting our warfighters, that our assets and our intellectual property that our organization has, that the DODs are being involved in. You're seeing stuff show up over in China. These are things that are not good. And so I just saw this as an additional opportunity to get involved in something that I think is doing something more than just my business. So that's another reason why we got involved in that. And so once I saw that, I got excited. I also got excited about the challenge of how difficult this was going to be for our company. And that's another big part of what this podcast is going to be about, is the transparency for us about what we're experiencing and through this transformation of our company, because everybody's going to have to go through this. And so we want to be more transparent about what that looked like for us, so that those others who are looking at doing it themselves, what can they expect?
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's a reason why we did title it climbing and not the top of, Mount CMMC, is because we're not there yet, right? And I think as we continue and things evolve, which of course they're always evolving with CMMC, we want to be here and we want to be telling you guys that are listening to this podcast so that we give you something that we wish we had, right? And so as we're going through this, our goal is to hopefully leave behind a trail that maybe is a little bit easier than the one that we tracked previously. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to these podcasts because I have learned so much listening to these genius people like Brian, like Joy, like all of those people that we've had on these podcasts. So I really hope that you guys take a lot out of this because I surely have. And also, the people on YouTube as well that will have this on, please make sure to comment and add questions. And we want this to be a culture, a community that you guys can come to, that we can be able to add to your guys' experience in climbing this mountain of CMMC. Is there anything that, Bobby, that you wanted to say to them before we close this out? Any encouragement or challenge of any kind to end our first episode, shall I say?
Well, I think one of the key things that we're going to try our absolute best in this podcast series is to realize that we're not perfect.
Yeah.
That we're going after the ascent of this hill. No one's actually climbed it yet. They've had joint assessments at the point of this recording, but no one has actually said, look, here's my certificate, because the DoD hasn't released that yet. The final ruling at the time of this recording has yet to been released. So we're still waiting on that with bated breath. So there's a lot of unknowns there, as well as I think a critical detail is we're going to be as transparent and maybe hard hitting about this as we can for anyone who's going to be watching, because I think there's been kind of this belief of those people that have fought such a difficult fight. Once they've gotten to a point where they feel like they're ready, they're like, dang, I don't want to really talk about this with anyone else because it was such a battle to get to where I'm at. They almost feel like it's something that you should have to try to earn and not necessarily share that externally out with others. And that's just not how I am. I want to try to open this up and make this a better community for other people. And I want to try to be as transparent and sharing as much information as possible. So you're absolutely right, Kaylee. For those who want to have specific questions answered, please ask them. We want to go after those types of things. We want to know what other people are wanting to know more about. And we want to get others invited on the show to talk about those types of things. If perhaps you've found some specific challenges and overcome them, we want to hear about that. We want to know about those types of things, because I think the more we get this information out, the stronger we make this community, the better it is for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube to stay up to date on the latest CMMC news. We hope you guys enjoyed today's episode and listen out for the next one. But until then, keep on climbing.